Good evening. Is it evening or is it early morning? Let's see. Anyway, to this little tribe family, sinners and other little freaks of nature. No, it's 11:19 on Tuesday, August the 26th. So we're getting started early today. Okay. There's so much I want to say. In the background, I have throat singers from Tuva playing. And I think it was back in 2000, I was at a festival, and these throat singers from Tuva performed, and it was so amazing. So I encourage everybody to research throat singers from Tuva, like traditional ones. It's amazing. Okay, so anyways, check mark. That's the first thing off the list I wanted to mention. Second thing I wanted to mention is, wow, some of you wizards are pretty powerful, I'm telling you. And it happened to my roommate at the same time. So in my dream, this was about a week and a half ago. It was almost like I felt like Demi Moore in The Seventh Side. Because all of a sudden I got punched in the face. And I don't know who it was, but somebody's like, would you die for him? And I got punched in the face, and I'm like, oh. And I'm not, no word of a lie, I woke up, and my back tooth was super loose. I'm like, what the hell? So I was like, wow, there's some powerful people. I'm sure that was meant to do more damage, but whoa. I woke up, my tooth was loose. I'm like, whoa. Anyway, so that's kind of interesting, because then I went upstairs and I was talking to my roommate. I'm like, I need some ibuprofen. And I told him, I got attacked in my dream, man. And he's like, are you kidding me? I said, why? He said a couple days prior, in his dream, he hurt his hand and he woke up and he actually ended up having to go to doctors because he thought his hand was broken. And he goes, it was just something happened in my dream. I was like, yeah, this is kind of crazy. It's not just me. So people, apparently it's like a Freddy Krueger thing. If you fight in your dreams, you can actually get hurt physically. It happened to myself and my roommate. Okay, check off the list. So my mouth's pretty sore right now. So if I sound like I'm talking weird, that's why. Alright, what's the next thing? Okay. The old me would retaliate. The old me would be argumentative. The old me would be like calling people up and saying, why? What were you thinking? Why would you do this? But when I said I'm not bringing the past into the future, I really mean it. And I have been studying for years, like physics, metaphysics, quantum physics, psychology, every religion out there, mythology. Like, it's like when I left Jake's dad in 2008, I just went into study mode. Because I couldn't afford to really go to school. Like, I went to the Medicine Hat College and upgraded. And then I was in an entrepreneurship program. Well, it was a competition for Southern Alberta. And then got into a serious car accident. And part of the competition was if you missed one of, like, you had to meet up once a week. And if you missed one of the group sessions, you were disqualified. And, well, I got rear-ended pretty bad, and so I got disqualified. Well, anyway, apparently I wasn't supposed to open a bistro. I don't know where I was going with that. Brain went whoosh. um, oh yeah, and I've just always, like, after that, I was kind of disappointed. Because the whole plan was to get my business. Like, I wanted to go for business. That's what I was upgrading, was upgrading my English. And I wanted to open my bistro because I promised my grandma Gabriella I would open the bistro up that when her and my grandpa Gaetano immigrated from Italy to Canada, they immigrated with this whole plan to have a deli bistro. And she, told me this whole plan, and I said, I promise you, Grandma, I'm going to do it one day. And so I always had that in mind. But it's like that ship sailed, right? So then I got thrown back into the kitchens, survival mode. But on my off time, because I worked 2 jobs, so I wasn't out partying, and I didn't bring guys around my kid. So I read a lot. It was free entertainment because I was pretty budgeted, and I couldn't afford to put myself through school, nor could I afford to take time off work. So I just educated myself. And I realized I am my best teacher. Well, anyways, so the old me, I guess I've been in this self-education mode without realizing it, since 2008. It's a long time. And time goes by fast, but I've had a lot of fun. And it's been through self-education that I truly have had enough proof and through enough research and trial and error. So no, we are all one conscious mind. So I am about unity, which means everybody, good, bad, and indifferent. It just means everybody's kind of got to evolve and become the best versions of themselves. So, to punish another person, since we are all part of one conscious mind, it doesn't matter. It still keeps planet Earth in a low vibration. So there comes a point where people just have to put all their crap aside and move forward and leave yesterday, right? So I'm really impatient. And I'm not an angry person. But I just figure let's all kind of grow together. And on that note, I was going through my computer. And I have read this story a few times, but I've deleted over 3,000 videos off my YouTube. So I'm going to re-record it and read it to you guys. I'm going to turn down my tuba throat singers. I got the fan going, tuba throat singers. And I need to concentrate here. Okay. Can I do this without the glasses? Let's see. So let's just call this day 1, or school day 1. Good, bad, and indifferent. We are all one, right? So I just don't have the energy to be angry at anybody. I really don't. I just think that, people live and learn, right? And it's just about being the best version of yourself. That's kind of what life's about. Well, anyways, I had wrote this. Here, I'll go to the bottom. I wrote it to enter into a contest. And when was this? I usually put the date on it. I want to say 2014. And it was for a competition for $2,500. So I used to enter like poetry competitions. That's how I went to Vegas in 2007. In 2006, I entered an international poetry competition, and it got audio recorded on a CD. And then I got asked to write another poem and go to Vegas and compete, and I did that. So that was pretty awesome. Anyway, so this one was in 2014. The deadline was March the 1st for $2,500 competition, but I never sent it in. I know something happened. And it was a short story. So I talk a lot about drinking because I don't judge alcoholism. What frustrates me is that my most favorite people have been alcoholics. And there's always a combo package with an alcoholic. There's always the awesome side, and then the one beer too many side, or one shot of whatever too many, and then the switch. And it's sad. It makes me sad. It almost reminds me of the movie like The Time Traveler's Wife or something like that. Because I just expect drugs and drinking. It's like you get that person and then boom, they're gone within a drink or whatever their vice is. So I don't judge the person. It's heartbreaking to me because I hate seeing them go, right? And when somebody drinks every day, it becomes a point where you only get glimpses of the person. I've just seen some of the best people I know go down to booze and drugs, and so I don't judge people that have addiction problems. I don't think I judge at all. I think it just makes me sad. Because it makes me sad that I see in people what they don't see in themselves. Anyway, so on that note, this story's is called The Curse of Mr. Scotch. And it's basically about like the demon of addiction, how it happens, right? So here we go. Do I need my glasses? Probably. Okay. No, I'll just make it all bigger. Change the font. Perfect. To like 30. Oh, that's perfect. Okay. There we go. So let's get into it. The Curse of Mr. Scotch. Are you ready? Okay. Mr. Scotch entered Richard's life on a cold and lonely night's moments after his wife labeled him delusional, leaving him for good. The usual sound of the fine Scotch splashing against the cold ice in his special highball glass brought feelings of relief to the middle-aged man. To some, Scotch was a gift at a social gathering. Richard had a long-standing relationship with a succulent essence and respected his fine liquor. Richard stood as a vessel for Mr. Scotch to roam the small town he lived in and cause chaos, finding creative ways to distract the name of the reputable man. Richard's relationship with Scotch became an obsessive love affair, resulting in his life spinning out of control on a downward spiral. Richard's wrinkled hand raised his highball glass to his mouth. As he sipped from his chalice of lies and false confidence, he could feel his spirits begin to lift. The essential moment he freely chose to allow his mind to go on autopilot, trusting in the supervision of his fine friend, Mr. Scotch. Mr. Scotch had a gift for attracting many admirers of the opposite sex. The influence of the fine liquor gave Richard the stamina necessary to fulfill these lustful women's needs. However, Mr. Scotch had a vindictive streak Richard was unaware of until the day he robbed him of his amazing sexual stamina. His chosen entertainment for the evening was a stunning woman with the body of an angel. Richard couldn't wait to explore her outer world and eventually contaminate her inner world with his own greedy and selfish desires. Mr. Scotch lured the young beauty back to Richard's love nest. He then gave Richard the confidence to seductively kiss the woman's neck, all at the same time having his hands explore her body. Her thighs were soft, and he could feel a cloud of heat residing between them. On the palm of his hand cupped her forbidden fruit. To Richard's astonishment, he felt nothing. He wasn't stimulated, or even aroused for that matter. After a few attempts, the beautiful woman became discouraged and left in search of someone who was able to satisfy her needs. In frustration, Richard walked over to his wet bar and poured himself a double Scotch on the rocks. Looking out of his master bedroom bay window into the dark night, he sipped from his glass and felt instant relief. As the succulent liquor wet Richard's mouth, 1 second. As the succulent liquor wet Richard's mouth, his ears unusually became aware of the sound of the clinking of the ice hitting his teeth, making him aware of his feelings. He felt no sense of relief, but rather a feeling of anger. Richard felt let down by Mr. Scotch. He drank the rest of his double Scotch in a single gulp as he shook his head in confusion. A habitual Richard walked towards his wet bar once again, but poured 4 shots of Scotch into his highball glass rather than the 2 shots he usually poured for himself. He poured the quadruple dose and poured yet another, shooting it back twice as fast with vengeance in mind. Richard looked up and caught a glimpse of his reflection in the mirror of his wet bar. He didn't recognize himself. Who was the old man staring back at him? Couldn't possibly be his reflection, for he was young, handsome, and admirable. Richard poured yet another quadruple dose minus the ice and walked towards his black leather recliner. As he sat in his chair of lost dreams, he began to notice how old his hands looked and how many cracks his body sounded by the simple act of sitting. Where have all the years gone? Richard asked himself. You gave them away, Richard, responded a voice in Richard's head. Ooh. Who did I give them to? Richard asked into thin air. You gave those years to me, Richard, replied the same voice in his head. I gave them to you. Who are you? Richard questioned in confusion. I'm Mr. Scotch, the voice replied. Who in the hell is Mr. Scotch? Richard asked himself in confusion. How easily forgotten are the ones who have been there for us the most. When you were sad, I was there for you. When you were happy, I was there for you. When you wanted to get laid, I made it happen. When you needed to become creative, I brought out your creativity. When you needed confidence, I gave you confidence. I'm Mr. Scotch, and I own you, replied the voice in Richard's head as it cackled loudly. I don't need you in my life. I've never needed you. In fact, I will dump the rest of you down the drain and never look back. I'm becoming bitter and cynical as I cannot let this alienating feeling continue very much longer. It's time for a change, and only I am capable of creating that change. However, the change must begin with me. Goodbye, Mr. Scotch, Richard replied as he dumped the rest of the bottle of scotch down his wet bar drain. As the liquid seeped down into the sink's drain, Richard could hear a cackle echo from the pipes, causing chills to crawl up his spine, creating the baby hairs on the back of his head to stand erect. Back of his neck, I was supposed to write, not head. I should correct that. I thought about that. Neck. Correction. There. All right. Richard went to bed early that morning in hopes of a better life to come. A few hours later, he awoke to the sound of a dripping faucet. The simple sound of the dripping water triggered the taste of scotch on Richard's palate. Richard rubbed his eyes and walked towards the shower in his master bedroom, undressing himself while he ran the water until his desired temperature was attained. As the water from his shower covered his face, he could feel a sense of renewal and change. He was tired of allowing Mr. Scotch to be a part of his everyday life and needed to prove to himself he could enjoy life without the liquor. He wasn't dependent on it. In fact, every time he bought a bottle, he was very conscious of his decision, or so he thought. A couple of days passed by, and although Richard was irritable, he managed to stay away from Mr. Scotch. One night, he began to feel sick to his stomach, suffering from the sweats and chills leaving him to feel very uneasy. I must be coming down with the flu, he convinced himself. Richard walked towards his kitchen and put some water on to boil. When he was coming down with something as a child, his dad would boil water, add rum, honey, and fresh lemon. This combination magically made him feel better every time. The water was finished boiling, so he poured some in a mug halfway up, added a tablespoon of honey, and squeezed fresh lemon wedge into the mug. Then he took his mug and walked towards the wet bar in search of some rum. Richard found a nice half-full bottle of spiced rum and poured it into his mug till it reached just below the top rim. He took his warm mug of relief to his black leather chair recliner and sat down in hopes of feeling back to good health. To his amazement, after only a few sips, he began to feel better as a sense of rejuvenation and well-being took over his entire body. His chills started to subside, and his stomach began to strengthen. He remembered his dad's concoction worked, but never recalled the effects being so instantaneous. You don't have the flu, Richard. You are going through withdrawals. I own you, replied the eerie and familiar voice known to belong to Mr. Scotch. No, you don't. I'm drinking rum, and clearly you're Scotch, so at the moment, I would say it's safe to believe Mr. Rum owns me. Wouldn't you agree? Richard stated as he questioned the arrogant voice inside his head. You silly, silly little man. Mr. Scotch, Mr. Rum, both are figments of your ego and insecurities. I am the demon of addiction. I own you. And my claws have a very tight grip on your soul. I gave you everything you ever asked of me. Now I'm here to collect. The eerie voice explained. Collect what? What do you want from me? Richard questioned the voice in his mind. I want everything. I want your job. I want your paychecks. I want your freedom. I want your license. I want your friendships. I want your family. I want your sanity and your reputation. I want it all, replied the greedy voice inside Richard's head. What will that leave me with? Richard questioned. You see, Richard, it's not about your needs. It's about my needs. You took advantage of me and my capabilities. You accepted praise for accomplishments which were never your own, but rather mine. You asked me to help you and your marriage, so I did. You asked me to find you friends in an active social life, so I did. You wanted to date young women half your age, so I made it happen. I own you, replied the voice, followed by yet another creepy cackle. The cackle repeated in his head over and over and over, with no end in sight of the nerve-wracking sound ever subsiding. Richard began to submit to Mr. Scotch's request as a nurse wheeled his soulless body past the security doors onto a unit floor labeled Mental Institution for the Severely Addicted Substance Abusers. What is the name of this patient we have here? The doctor questioned the same nurse who had wheeled Richard onto the ward moments earlier. His name is Richard, but he likes to be called Mr. Scotch, the nurse replied promptly. Mr. Scotch, eh? Do you realize? And I'm here to try and help bring... Wait, Mr. Scotch. Well, Mr. Scotch. Mr. Scotch, eh? Do you realize he is our 10th client this month who wants to be called Mr. Scotch? The doctor said to the nurse as he shook his head in mystery and began to check Mr. Scotch's vitals. "Well, Mr. Scotch, I am your doctor, and I'm here to try and help bring clarity into your life," the doctor replied as he stared into Richard's lifeless eyes. He took Richard's pulse. As proof life actually existed in Richard's lifeless body. On the doctor's way home from the hospital later that evening, he felt compelled to stop by the liquor mart and grab something for he and his wife to enjoy as a nightcap. He walked up and down the aisles until he felt drawn to look to his right. In front of him, laid on a shelf, a bottle of Glenfiddich Scotch. The doctor picked up the bottle, giggled slightly to himself, and replied, "Mr. Scotch, it's nice to finally meet you. Why don't you come over for a nightcap and we'll have a little chat?" The doctor paid for his fine bottle of scotch and drove home to dinner prepared by his loving wife. The doctor was not aware Mr. Scotch would make love to his wife like she had never had it done to her before. After this particular evening, in order to satisfy his wife, he had to leave lovemaking in the hands of Mr. Scotch, allowing himself to be used solely as a vessel. The doctor and his wife's marriage improved now that they were able to master the art of lovemaking. The doctor's wife's urges spiraled out of control as her sexual needs outweighed all of her other needs by insurmountable measures. Before long, Mr. Scotch owned the doctor's wife. In order for the doctor to become aroused, he had to drink at least 2 shots of scotch before lovemaking. His wife was beautiful, for there wasn't any part of her he was not attracted to. What was going on? The doctor asked himself before his wife interrupted his thoughts. "Honey, is everything okay?" questioned his naked wife laying next to him in a bed on top of a puddle of confusion. "It just feels like it's broken," the doctor replied in a serious manner. "It's not broken, sweetheart. It probably just needs a break," the doctor's wife replied, silently giggling to herself. "It's not funny. I'm too young for this to happen to me. This happens to old guys. I'm healthy, I'm vibrant, I'm active. There's no reason for me to not be able to keep an erection, or even get one for that matter. I feel like it's broken," the doctor replied, as he rose from their bed and walked towards the kitchen to pour himself a stiff drink. When he searched inside his liquor cabinet, he saw his bottle of Glenfiddich and said to himself quietly, "You let me down, buddy. Together you and I were able to rock my wife's world. Now, nothing. What happened? You were supposed to be my wingman." "Your wife no longer stimulates me," replied a voice inside of the doctor's head. "What the hell are you talking about? She's not supposed to stimulate you. She's supposed to stimulate me," the doctor silently replied into thin air. "You see, doctor, it's not about your needs. It's about my needs. You took advantage of me and my capabilities. You accepted praise for sexual accomplishments which weren't your own, but rather mine. You asked me to help you fix your marriage, so I did. You asked me for the opportunity to experience the best lovemaking you could possibly experience in life, so I made it happen. You wanted to master the capabilities of making your wife climax to extreme measures, so I made it happen. I own you," replied the voice, followed by yet another creepy cackle. The cackle repeated in his head over and over and over, with no end in sight of the nerve-wracking sound ever subsiding. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and before long, the doctor and his wife had no desire to touch or even be around each other anymore. The doctor's wife became frustrated, and although it was out of character for her to drink during the weekday, she found herself drawn towards the liquor cabinet. When she opened the doors of the liquor cabinet, in front of her stood a nice shiny bottle of Glenfiddich. The doctor's wife took the bottle from inside of the liquor cabinet and poured herself a nice stiff drink over a bed of ice. As she sipped back the fine scotch, she could feel the succulent essence of the liquor coat her throat and own her soul. Little did she know was the destructive future plans Mr. Scotch had in store for her, like a fine bottle of scotch. Creepy, right? So, basically, when I wrote this, I kept thinking of like the demon of addiction and how they call it spirits, because, you know, that's why I say, like, that's why I don't drink, because we are vessels. And like I said, some of my most favorite people have been alcoholics, and I've seen stuff just take over them. And then the next day you talk about it, because I've been sober, and they're like, oh, I blacked out. And I put it together. I'm like, a blackout, I think, is a possession. I really do believe that. So I wrote this to basically personify what it would be like to be possessed by the spirits of alcohol, like when they call it like spirits, right? And I guess on that note, I'll finish this off with a poem. I know I've recited this several times, but we'll do it again because I've deleted it off my YouTube once again for probably the 10th time. But this was the one I used to compete in Vegas with, and it's about drinking. So let me get into my mode. I'll probably stumble. It's up here. T. One sec. Okay. I think I'm there. Yeah. I emotionally ventured into the future, and it was you I didn't see there. Rather, I saw a malicious grin from a dangerous place as I sat and watched you stare. Optimism was no longer within reach for your thinking, clear like the spring's natural flowing streams, but rather fogged while you were still drinking, your voice still stinking from yesterday's pain, mumbling angry chords to a shady tune which only made you look foolish. But you didn't care because it falsely convinced you were still sane. Too selfish to even notice, too intoxicated to even care. It was your lost dreams you were mourning. It was your lost dreams which kept us there. It's at the coming of each new dawn when you find yourself looking in the mirror. It's the reality of the unknown in your own life proving to be your greatest fear. For I'm aware of your hidden secrets as I watch how your mind tends to disappear as you continue to make a pointless promise on the eve of each and every new year. A search for recognition and personal freedom with only one focus on your mind. A search which keeps you hanging for you cannot find. A search which keeps you blind, watching as you drown in your own sorrows as you wait today in agony for all those new todays and missed tomorrows. Ta-da! So that's kind of my combo package. You get a story and a poem. And hopefully maybe that will, even if that hits home with one person and that there's an aha moment where it's like, shit, she just totally read my life story, my deep secret I want to tell people about. Well, if that is you that I'm touching base with on the collective level, then you need to know that there's so many out there that are battling it. And it's not just booze, it's not just drugs. People battle gambling, people battle food addictions, shopping addictions, technology addictions, social media addictions. Like, it's just the demon of addiction. We all have a vice, right? And I think that it's not necessarily about quitting everything, but finding a moderation, finding that balance, right? I don't need it anymore. Like, every once in a while, I'll sit here and go, glass of wine would be nice. But then I don't have it. I have a coffee or a tea. I can't remember the last time I had a drink. I really can't. I can't. I can't. It's been that long. Like, I don't know. But I'm guilty of smoking cigarettes. So that's a demon of addiction. And I battle that. And every time I buy a pack of smokes, I feel guilty. I do. I feel it. Because I feel like I should be stronger than this. I should be stronger. And I am stronger. But the problem is you know what it is? I don't want to say I enjoy putting smoke in my lungs. But what it is for me, and I think for anybody that has a drug problem or a drinking problem or whatever, is that sometimes, like, especially when I was working the kitchens, if I didn't have a cigarette, I wouldn't stop. I just go, 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 go. And that's whether I'm writing or researching. I'll go, 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 go. And sometimes, I just woke up the dog. And sometimes having that cigarette, that 5 minutes, it makes me stop and gives my brain a rest. And that's what I kind of think, all addictions do. It just stops and gives our brain a rest. So I think, that's where meditation and breathing exercises come in. So my demon of addiction is cigarettes. Yeah. And so I know what it's like to feel like you need something. I know that feeling, and I think that's where it's not a judgment thing. It's just, that's where, as one conscious mind, where people pull each other up, and help each other through these addictions, right? And empower each other, strengthen each other, rather than enable each other. And I think that's kind of the era we got to come out of, is enabling each other to be lower versions of ourselves. And that's kind of where I'm impatient. Let's just get this ball rolling. And big part of where my brain's at is doing that switch over from everybody encouraging each other to seek joy in lower vibrational lifestyles and go the creation of a new existence where everybody's encouraging each other to be the best versions of themselves. You know, kind of like misery likes company. Well, rather, if someone is battling a drinking problem, then if you want to help them be a better version of themselves, then rather saying, hey, you want to go get a drink after work, maybe say, hey, do you want to go get a coffee and take a walk? Right? And if we all start doing that for each other and encouraging each other and supporting each other, what a beautiful existence to evolve into of unity, right? Because the only way to raise the vibration on Earth is if we all rise up together. You know? And there's one thing in the Bible that's really important to me. And I can't quote the verse, but it sticks with me. The lesson is there. Is that you can't be judged, you really can't be judged on what you're ignorant to, right? And I think there's been so much mind control and so much confusion over centuries that everybody just needs to like just admit that we've all been misled by even our grandparents. We've just all been misled into like this vortex of confusion that's been going on for eons. And it's kind of like scorekeeping's got to go stop. I just think everybody needs a big reset button, right? And the best way to do that is to just one day wake up and say, today's the day I'm going to be the best version of myself. No matter what walk you come from. Gangs, whatever. You know what? Who you were today doesn't have to define who you are tomorrow. You know, and trust me, I've reinvented myself several times. And you will lose people when you take a higher road. You lose people. There's some people that refuse to accept that you've changed. There are some people that don't like a newer version of you. There's some people that will refuse to rise with you. But ultimately, the whole point to this life is you're born into this world. It's your connection with the divine. Your whole journey is about life lessons and finding the blessing in the lesson. And you're born into this world as a singular universe. And you leave this world as a singular universe. So, you know, we're not born to just sit here and party and define ourselves one way forever. You can recreate yourself any moment you wake up. Any day you wake up, you can say, you know what? I don't want to do this no more. It doesn't feel good. You know? I don't think things are worse. I think things are just different. Nothing's better or worse. Things are just different. And I think like on a global scale, people just need to have better skills at adapting to changes and, you know, acceptance, adaptability, and learning how to just kind of go with stuff, not be so set in ways, and, you know, be willing to compromise and upgrade their belief systems. Yeah. And one of the biggest things is realizing we are truly spiritual beings having a human experience. And this is all a costume. It's really what's inside that matters. Because this is just a costume. Doesn't matter what side of the world you come from. It don't matter. Because we're all one. We're all part of Christ consciousness. Whether you believe it or not, that's just how it is. you know. Okay, now I'm just talking. All right, I love you. So I think we've hit the morning now. We've talked enough. Let's see. Have we made it to the AM? Oh, yes, we have. It is now Wednesday, August 27th at 12:09 a.m. So I can say Grand Rising. Anyway, sweet dreams, Soul Tribe family members, little sinners, and other freaks of nature, which is basically all of us, Soul Tribe family members, on a conscious level, on that one conscious mind level. Okay, anyway, bye.